Big thanks to Big Bad Toy Store for sending these along. Check them out and some other awesome action figures you can get at the links in the description. Kaiju, turtles, Dragon Ball, and more. It's Steven's Toy Reviews. Hey there, collectors. It's going to be Steven here, and welcome to a double review, where today we're going to be taking a look at the SH Figuarts Ryu and Chun-Li Outfit 2 from their Street Fighter 6 appearance. Do take note, though, it's not going to be an accurate release because, you know, sculpt-wise, they're not exactly aged up to where they would be in Street Fighter 6, but remember, folks, we don't ask the ladies their age or their weight, according to Chun-Li. But nevertheless, this is going to be an interesting way for Tamashii Nations to get their popular SH Figuarts line back on the market in the Street Fighter community with these neat repaints for Outfit 2 versions. These figures are going to be $80 a piece, and that is going to raise an eyebrow for some because in the current market there are going to be a lot of options for Street Fighter releases. And considering that these are going to be repaints of some older figures, initially even yours truly thought maybe this would not be worth the purchase. I was kind of hesitant to get them. However, when I got them in hand, I have to say that I am very pleasantly surprised, and I do have to say, whether you are new to getting Street Fighter figures or if you have the original releases, you will find a lot of neat stuff here for these two releases. So let's take a look to see whether or not these are going to be worth adding into your collection. So first and foremost, we're going to go ahead and we're going to go over the articulation, because I think this will be an easy section to go over, and I think those of you who either have experience with these figures or maybe you already have them and you're just kind of looking to get the feel for how they are now, you know what we're going to be talking about, because this will blend over into the sculpt and paint and the accessories as well. So first, let's go ahead and take a look at Ryu, who I was rather pleasantly surprised by, because I'm not really too used to this figure, because I thought there was different engineering. So let's just go ahead and talk. Head is going to be plugged in on a ball joint, and I didn't put his toupee back on correctly. Yeah, head is going to be plugged in on a ball joint for the neck, so where you can look up, down, rock left and right, turn side to side, and the neck is going to be on a ball joint as well. So the neck is going to play into the head swapping gimmick that he has for the alternate head parts. For the shoulders, if you're familiar with the Dragon Ball figures, this is going to have a somewhat similar engineering scheme to like Jiren, kind of sort of like Ultimate Gohan. So it's kind of difficult to see, but if you kind of pull away his clothing here, you can see that it's anchored there. There is like a ball joint floating butterfly joint, I guess the best way to say it. You can see that the skin tone plastic for Ryu, it can kind of rotate up, kind of rotate down. And then we do have the arms, which plug in on a ball joint, and those twist and turn and spin all the way around. It can get a little bit goofy when you do things like that, because you do have a couple of ball joints in here, and which one wants to spin, which one doesn't. So just be careful when you are doing that, so this way you don't accidentally like twist the wrong ball joint there and you tear it. You don't want to do that. We do have hinges as well, and in connection, Ryu can cross his arms over about that much. Okay? Now you're going to notice no straightforward dedicated bicep swivel. There's no cut, which is kind of weird. You'd expect that there would be, but if you look to see where that hinge, so this way Ryu can T-pose, plugs into the arm, that will give you a little bit of rotation and rocking. So you can do that. Or when we do have the double hinge elbow, right, there is going to be a cut for a swivel. So that does help as well. But do take note that for the sculpt, there is, I guess what you can say, the elbow pad. I mean, it's not really that, but you know what I mean. That can collide into the sculpt on the arm, and that can create a little bit of restraint of movement. For the wrist joints, we are going to have a swivel where it plugs into the forearm, a hinge, and then the hand plugs in on a ball joint. So that is something to keep in mind. There we go. You kind of saw it when I pulled this away. Do we have a torso joint, like an ab crunch there? See it so you can confirm for yourself. We do. It's a little bit of one. Little bit of one. See? Even touching it. Just moves a little bit. Not too much, though. I can't get that to move too much, especially because of his shirt, or the top portion of his clothing. Anyway, but we do have a very, very flexible double access barbell style ball joint in the waist, and that's where the majority of our movement for the torso is going to come from. So that is good to see. For his sash, it actually does spin around. But do take note that you can actually see it right here. I don't need to tell you. You can kind of see it just right there. That little square, that plug, it actually is a bit loose on mine. So when I go to move this around, that moves too. So just keep in mind, you don't want to spin this like a pinwheel. For the hips, we do have the standard sort of renewal swivel ball joint connection there. So he can do the splits out about that far and then kick forward and back about that far. So he doesn't have a sculpted butt, so he can actually kick backwards. We do have a dedicated thigh swivel, which is nice. Single hinge knee, but it is going to have a peg connecting into the bottom portion and the top. So you do get a little bit of swivel movement. Do keep in mind the sculpt, so you can get some nice rotation there. We do have, swivel down here for the lower portion of the leg. We do have a nice hinge to move the foot forward and back, along with ankle rocker movement, and they're not loose, but we have a toe hinge, which is always cool to see. You know, we got a toe hinge on bare feet, but they go down as well. So that's something to keep in mind. So Ryu's articulation is rather solid. You do have to force him a little bit, and with some tight joints in the shoulder, that can be an issue. See, like the SHF Raditz, the original release. You don't want to cause any sort of forceage or breakage. Treat it with care. Chun-li. Okay. Now, when I was getting prepared for this video, along with a few others, I noticed that there were a lot of folks who were a little confused as to what her torso articulation was. So I'm going to go ahead and throw a picture up when we get there. But first and foremost, these move. And let me tell you, when I was working the different joints on her, it was kind of scary that these just popped off. They kind of just flew off. So I don't necessarily think they're intended to be removable, but if they do pop off, just know they are going to be on swivels. So her head is going to be, I believe this is just going to be sort of like a ball joint connection there. So she can look up about that far, down that far, but her head may cause her face to pop off. So there you go. Okay. Plug that back on. And so the chin will cause the faceplate to pop off if you look down too much. Left and right. Okay. We got the head movement somewhat restricted, but nevertheless, it's fine. Shoulders. First and foremost, yes, ball joints where they plug in, but keep in mind, we do have pop outs. So we get a little extra movement. So assuming we do the pop out, obviously, yes, like I said, we do have ball joints so we can spin and rock around. And then we do have hinges so we can get with enough finagling. Come on, Chun-Li, show me. You did it for me before. That's about as close as right now as I can get for a T-pose. So we can get pretty close because of the puffiness of her shoulder pads here. It does prevent straight T-pose, but you fudge what you can get. But very similar to Ryu, the way that it kind of works is that the shoulders have that hinge that plugs in, that gives you a little bit of rotation up here, but that's fine. It doesn't really matter because they move the bicep swivel on down here. So it doesn't matter. We do have a single hinge elbow, which is fine because, I mean, that's how much better range of movement can you get? Like if this is one of those situations where we could have a double hinge, but is it going to be more effective? And as well, it kind of moves. Not too much, but if you need to get micro adjustments, specifically more so for the forearm, you can. For the wrists, you pretty much know what we're dealing with here. Just like Ryu, peg in the forearm, a hinge, and then a ball joint. And you can remove the wrist bracelets there, but that's a lot. So a lot of folks were a little confused over her torso articulation, thinking maybe there's like a confusing barbell style system. And that's kind of what it looks like. It's pretty straightforward. It's just one one overall system there, and her dress is what's really holding everything together. So all that considered, it's not too bad. I'll just do a snap back, and yeah, good range of movement. She can rock back about that far, rock down that far, that side, twist and turn, heart's content. Is a little tight. I will say that this plastic piece for the dress does tend to get stuck up there. It rides up, if you will. And when I'm moving the ab crunch around, it may be what's causing a little bit of friction, but nevertheless. Hips, you pretty much know what we're working with here. She does not have a full sculpted on tuchus, so we can do kick forward and back like that, and then to the side. There you go. That was awkward to address, but nevertheless, that is legitimately one of the reasons why some Figuarts do not have a full backswing to the legs. We do have dedicated thigh swivel, as you can see there. Very good. Single hinge knees, which double could provide some better range of movement. Do we have anything then? Well, we do get some ankle swiveling movement here. Hinge, forward and back, ankle rocker as usual, and a toe hinge. Chun-Li's articulation is solid, and as we will see, she can use her accessories rather well, too. Moving right along over to looks, we will take a look at Ryu briefly for the body, and then we'll take a look at Chun-Li. For Ryu, the sculpt is rather solid, and if you are familiar with the original Sculpt release of this figure from quite a few years ago, you're going to see all of the things you might remember, like the nice muscle details, the fabric on the clothing is really well defined, and the sculpted hair detail is nice. The paint application here is definitely going to be a step up from that original release though, and it is going to help bring out some of the finer details, which maybe you did not appreciate as much as the original release, but definitely, at least compared to the promo pics for the original release, the final product here looks a lot nicer in terms of appreciating those finer details. When we take a look at the main body, because we will take a look at the different face sculpts in just a little bit, the main body of Ryu does have some nice tan and even darker shading on the muscles, most specifically on the bicep area, where we definitely can see that, Ryu knows how to lift. But the issue is going to be when it comes down to the feet, there's really not going to be any paint app, so it's a little bit of a disproportionate application of the paint. However, do note that on his chest, on his torso, he does have the paint apps applied well. For his clothing, we are going to have a few different shades of gray, which is rather nice. So this way we can see that it is a little tattered considering he's been wearing the same uniform for how many years now, at least in this alternate outfit. The only thing that may catch a few collectors off guard is going to be where we do have breaks in the clothing for the joints, specifically like around the knee. There is going to be a little bit of the break of an illusion because of the different parts of the sculpt, and also they don't really paint the joints. So something to just keep in mind. The red for the gloves, and that is also going to extend on over into the alternate hands as well, looks really nice with no real paint application issues, especially for the black coloring that is used for the characters on the wrist portions. Now, when it comes to Chun-Li, I do have to say that initially I was actually super impressed over the moon because I thought that the gold was actually to a pinpoint precision on her dress. Upon super close inspection, obviously since this is a production unit, that is not the case, but nevertheless, I would have to say the level of impressed that I was maybe dropped down 2% at worst, because you can see all of the gold trimming on her is amazing and breathtaking from a good distance away, which we are here, but even when we get up close and personal, it is very difficult to see where there may be some issues. You're really going to have to examine it closely, even under macro photography, to find any issues with the gold paint. And gold paint historically is really difficult for companies to nail correctly. And I will say that even when we get to the gold trimming around the portion of her dress, I believe that may be. Please let me know what that officially is in the comments down below. I do not know. I'm pleading ignorance here and help me learn. The gold trim is very nice, and there's not really a whole lot of chippage, if you will, especially considering the softer nature of the plastic. For The legs, we do have, like Ryu, some paint shading that is indicative of her musculature. And her shoes, the boots, I guess you may call them, they do have some gray shading as well to help bring out the stitching details for Chun-Li. Overall, the metallic paint that they have for her is really nice, and it catches light in a very great way. If anything, though, maybe she is just a little bit too light in terms of the skin tone, because she is very, very bright in the studio setup that I have here. But that is not just going to be because of the lighting setup that I have. Pretty much in any lighting situation that I have, that is going to be what Chun-Li looks like. So when we bleed on over here into the accessories, which I hope that was a rather nice transition, please let me know about this, because I kind of want to spice up and change how I'm doing reviews a little bit. But anyway, when it comes to the accessories here, the figures are rather nicely loaded with what they do come with, and they also do come with more than the original releases, even though it may just be one kind of, right? We'll talk about that. But here's basically going to be the gist. We do have a backdrop for both of the characters. They have their respective ones behind them. They come with one effect part. They come with in total 3 different expressions. And though Ryu does come with 2 sets of alternate hands, it's going to be fists and splayed, Chun-Li does come with, aside from the default fists, 3 extra sets of hands. And that's going to be sort of high five, splayed, and then karate chopping hands. Or Specium hands, if you're an Ultraman fan. Did you check Ultraman Rising? Comments below. Anyway, so this is all nice and good. So now that we are here, let's go ahead and take a look at the different face plates that the characters do in fact come with. And that is going to be, for Ryu by default, we are going to have just a normal head sculpt. Nice and easy, no big deal. Then we're going to have the clenching faceplate, which is okay, neat. You're going to be looking off to the side, which, you know, I always believe that we should have, if it's going to be only left, we should have neutral or right as well. Then we're going to have shouting. Okay, I think it could be done a little better, but nevertheless. And then we're going to have the glaring head sculpt, faceplate, whichever you would prefer, which I do believe that this is going to be new for Ryu. Now, swapping everything out is relatively easy. The connection, the pop, if you will, for Ryu is going to be rather minimal when you put the new head sculpt on. So do keep that in mind when you are making those changes. So it's not going to be like a nice solid, it's just going to pop into place. For Chun-Li, we are going to have the normal faceplate, kind of emotionless, no expression there. Then we are going to have a shouting faceplate. We are going to have a smiling faceplate, and then for this release, we are going to have a laughing faceplate, which this is rather iconic for Chun-Li, and my understanding, this is going to be new for this particular release, which is good to see that they included something that is iconic like this. So now we'll take a look at the effect parts that these figures come with as well. I do know that a lot of folks were looking forward to these, just like myself, because these are awesome. First, we'll take a look at the Hadouken. Yeah. I don't pronounce that very well, but this is rather straightforward. It's going to be a slight repaint from the original release. You can see that there are 2 different colors that are in there, which is pretty nice to see. If you have Dragon Ball Figuarts, this would be a great stand-in for a Kamehameha effect. You can see that the white for the tip there is rather cool. It does have a nice gradient and transition effect as it continues on. It is cool to see that we do have the different blues. It's almost like a temperature effect. That's pretty cool. The only downside is definitely going to be the support stand, because let's just bring that back in now that we're actually talking about this. Let's get that in mind. It is only 1 height. So if you do want Ryu to use this attack, you're going to have to adjust your expectations for the attack around the stand. So any pose that you come up with, any pose that you have, you're going to have to keep that particularly in mind. Now, this is something that I always like to do. Remember that this is not official, and we'll go ahead and we'll do a live test here. So this is going to be the support stand that you get. You have to assemble this, but it's pretty easy to figure out. All right, where is it at? Where did it go? Okay, and so it does fit in a Tamashii support arm. So if you did want to change things up, you can get a Tamashii stage arm Act 4, Act 5, humanoid, whatever, and you can use one of these support arms for that. So, all good there. Now, I'm not even going to pretend like I know how to pronounce it. I'm not even going to try to pretend like I know how to pronounce it. However, thankfully, there was an updated translation to it. Okay, so here it is. It's yellow, right? This is a really cool effect part, and it is apparently the 100 lightning kicks now. There you go. You know what the effect is. You know what the effect is. Anyway, so this was originally confusing for me a little bit because in the promo pics, I thought that Chun-Li was, her foot was like up here, but that's not the case. And I actually didn't look in the instructions initially and I got scared. These parts can actually come off. So if you did want to, for whatever reason, remove these, you could. It's not hard to figure out where they go back on since it's only one direction. You can't really do a whole lot of customization. So if they do happen to pop off, you can pop them back on with ease. No real big deal there. Okay. Now, what I was really confused about is, once again, it's one height. So you're kind of locked into that. But the thing about it is, I initially didn't figure that part out. So it separates, and this is going to clasp around Chun-Li's foot. So if you do that, it is lightweight enough that you can pop the stand off and you can put this around her leg and then have her stand with just the effect part. If you want. If not, that is, of course, what the stand is for. I would say that if you're not too experienced with different poses and effect parts and so on and so forth, this may be a good chance to start with that and to see if you're going to be able to do that. I will say, though, it is not that sturdy of a figure to do so because she has very small feet. And as you can see, the support stand does have a ball joint to it. So if you did want to try to just get some new angles situated with that, you very much so could. Last but most certainly not least, depending on how you view things, we do have the backdrops that come with the respective characters. The ones on the left, we do get 2 panels that come with Ryu, and on the right, we do get them that come with Chun-Li, and that is actually going to be the same ones that are in the promotional pictures, and is going to be the theme of the box for the different characters. So I don't know the names of the stages offhand, but you can see what it's based off of, and they are actually one cohesive image for each of the different arenas, but you have to get the panels in the correct order. Something that folks have noted is that they are rather difficult to stand and get them to stand on their own because they sort of, as you may be able to see over here, maybe not, they're sort of curved. So it may be just a little bit difficult to get them to stay in place. But if you are looking to do that, blue tack is your best friend. A little bit of magic here. All of those have blue tack between them to make them stay in place. Because I have my fan on because it is very hot in here. So there is that. So when it comes to the individual packages for each of the figures, I do think that everything is rather solid, but I do think that they both could benefit from support stands because, as we all know, Ryu does some kind of like uppercut effect. I don't know. It starts with an S, and then, Chun-Li, gets on her head and does the little spinny thing like Hitmon top, I think. I don't know, maybe. And also, at this point, they could have added in some other effect parts, which would have been really cool for them. But nevertheless, there are new parts that are included, as well as updated parts, the backdrops, I do believe. So with that being said, it is nice to see that we do have some more interesting accessories included for these releases. But if you are looking to get other accessories or effect parts, you know that I have videos to help you out. Now, here's going to be a size comparison so you can see how big they are going to be alongside some other figures you just might have. You may notice that there is going to be an omission here from another popular brand. Don't worry, Street Fighter is in the name, and I think we're going to have to put the figures through their paces. Hint, hint, it will come soon enough. Figure fight. So, buy now, skip, or wait for a deal. As I did make mention, or at least hinted at, I don't have the original releases of these two, so I cannot do a comparison with them. So a lot of the information that I have from the original release though I was collecting at the time they came out. I did not pick them up, so I did have to reference materials that were available online. I will say, again, when I saw that these were solicited, I didn't think that I really wanted to get them. I was interested, but again, BBTS, we were able to collab together and get this to happen. And I have to say that now that I have them in hand, I would be more than happy to put down the money to purchase these and have them in my collection. Yes, I do have Jada's offerings of both of these characters, and I am very pleased with them, but these do offer something different, and I really do like what they have to offer here. There's a different level of articulation and a different level of detail that is found here, almost akin to Marvel Legends versus SH Figuarts in its own certain way. Now, Storm Collectibles haven't touched yet for Street Fighter. We'll see in the future, but in terms of folks looking to maybe get a nice quality Street Fighter action figure, notably right now for a reasonable price of Ryu or Chun-Li, I do think that the SH Figuarts options are amazing, and I don't think that you will go wrong with either of these options.